Keep in mind this video is sped up. However, we've drawn cubes by now, so important. Anytime that we're drawing, especially planar objects, we're 100% trying to visualize the vanishing points that we're drawing to as much as possible. Again, our goal is to try to start these out as light as we possibly can, realizing and recognizing that we're going to go back in and we're going to shore up our line work later. Especially if we know and we have a clear goal in mind that we might be doing value on any of these drawings, that we want to make even the casting of our light rays, we want to make sure we keep that stuff pretty light too. So that first one, that one's going to a vanishing point. That second one goes to a vanishing point, and then that one connects from the surface. So all of those edges are basically casting onto the ground. You have three planes that you're working with, and you're dealing with these planar objects. What your goal is to make each one of these planes clear and distinct. You're trying as much as possible to not allow them to mush all into one value range. In the beginning, you can pretty much make the value fairly similar for both sides. It's just important that you remember where the plane changes are so that you can go back in, and then you can make a decision based off of where your light source is. Which side do you firmly believe is going to have the much darker plane? Every once in a while, I will use the tracing paper to keep from smudging the drawings underneath, because otherwise it's pretty easy when your arm is moving back and forth to end up smudging the drawings below. In this case, again, I'm making as much effort as possible to try to move my arm. Every once in a while, when I do rendering, I will kind of fall back into, especially in really small areas, doing a little bit more drawing with the wrist. But it's far more effective and efficient if you can move your arm. And a lot of it looks like it might be wrist drawing, but some of it is just the arm and the wrist working together to do some of that drawing. So anytime I'm making really long lines, though, I am 100% using my arm as much as possible, because it's super hard to make long lines when you're using just your wrist. In this case, if you do an indoor light source or an artificial light source, you do have to take into account that you will have a really elongated shadow. Just in this case, don't draw into the other forms. Just stop it when it gets to the other forms so that you can allow them to have their air and to space to breathe. But you do want to at least be able to visualize where you're casting that shadow and effectively how long it is. The thing to always realize is that when you're drawing those light rays through your object, all you're effectively doing is trying to figure out where that top edge is hitting the ground. Especially with your cubes and your cylinders, you're really just trying to cast that top edge on all your planes towards the ground, and then you're drawing back to your vanishing points to close them up. So in this case, is once you find the planes, it's a matter of giving them some relatively flat values, going in and from that corner giving it a little bit of value weight, and then making a decision to create that transition, because you on any of the shadow parts of any of your objects, they're almost never completely flat. That on the dark side of all your objects, on the dark side, okay, on the dark side, it's almost always still some light bouncing around. So the little bit of light you see on the shadow side on all of these is the reflected light that bounces from the ground. It looks a little lighter in the video, but the reflected light should not have the same level of intensity as your highlight or your light source. And so you want to get the value on that reflected light so that it's somewhat darker than your highlight, but it's not as dark as your core shadow, and it's the middle value of your shadow side.